Okay, so that's enough in the news for a little while. I will have more tomorrow. But I need to give you the update on what's going on because, in case you haven't noticed, I've been a little sparse around these parts for the last month and a little bit. Most of you know what's going on in an overall general sense. Basically, I fought cancer and drove really fast. That pretty much concludes my trip to Germany for 5 weeks. All that is over at caringbridge.com/visit/my name, Duane Patterson. But, so here's the deal. The easiest way for me to explain kind of how I feel fine, okay? I mean, I was not really symptomatic before. I mean, I had a lump here. I apparently had a lump in my chest, which I didn't even feel. But I mean, it's not like I have cancer, like I can't eat. I've got no appetite. I'm responding to the treatments poorly, and I'm just withering away, and I have no hair, and I have cancer. I never really was symptomatic. The goal for this whole treatment was not to become symptomatic, and I'm still not. And hopefully I'm not going to be down the road. So the way I'm looking at this is the overall thing is I've got 3 hurdles that I've got to clear here in the next 3 months. And for all the prayer warriors that are out there, and there are legion of prayer warriors, and I do appreciate it, and I look forward to getting many more of those down the road. Even if I am perfectly fine, everybody could use prayer. Even Michael can use prayer. Right, Michael? Right. The first hurdle is a blood test that is to be coming down the pike this week. When I first arrived in Germany 5 weeks ago, there were 2 blood tests they took. One of those tests is a bread and butter, plain old tumor marker test that they run here in the States. They run everywhere. And it's a kind of a rule of thumb that kind of tell you kind of where you're at. But it's not the most reliable test in the world because you can theoretically take blood out of the same arm, same vein, put it in 2 different vials, take it to the same lab, run the same test in the same lab by the same person, and come out on a numerical scale, and there could be a 1/10 of a point difference here and there, even with the same sample type, just because there's always some variations in the tests. When I arrived, that tumor marker test showed at a 1.7 level. Now, what does that mean? I have no idea. Anything at a 1.5 or below means you're in normal range for this tumor marker. I was at a 1.7. That means you have cancer. Well, I knew that. That's why I went to Germany. No big surprise there. Now, what that means, though, there's a couple things, and there's a working theory that we have all kind of gone down the road here. A lot of people, when they have cancer and they go to this clinic and they do this same tumor marker test they've come back with numbers that are in the 5s. Not like 0.5, but 5 point somethings. So like not a 1.7, but I have cancer, but they really have cancer, okay? I may have had a higher number than that before I got to Germany. When I got diagnosed again, which was back in June, it took me a couple of months to kind of get everything all in order before I could go to Germany to begin with. But I wasn't sitting around just watching my tumor grow in my spare time. I was doing what I can at home to combat it and do stuff that I know I can do. And while I was doing all that, it was very probable that I had a higher number, and I was gradually knocking it down at home. And so when I got to Germany, it was at a 1.7, which means I was probably well on my way to where I needed to be. 2 weeks after treatment, which is all the IVs and all the blood ozone treatment they do and the hyperthermia on my neck and my back and doing all the injections, what they call carcino something injections, where they inject a little sugar-based stuff around where the tumor's at in my back and here, and it causes a tumor to go, ooh, lunch truck. And they start reaching out and saying, whatever that is, I want more of that. And it starts doing the black hole and it absorbs it. So they absorb all that sugar that's all of a sudden hit right next to them. And what they do when they start munching on that sugar is they don't realize it's like the creeps we used to worry about at Halloween, which they'd put razor blades in the candy, and you had to worry about that because, the kids like the candy, and they start throwing that candy in their mouth, and all of a sudden something bad's in there with it that takes out the kid. Well, that's kind of what they do to the cancer or to the tumors. They give it the sugar they like, but then they put some really nasty stuff in there that tumors really don't like until it's too late, and then they start killing off the tumors. So that stuff was going on. I mean, all that stuff was going on, the heat treatments, everything else they were doing. After 2 weeks of treatment, they did the same tumor marker test. And when that came back, I was down to a 1.2. Now, they thought that was a really good thing because normally the fluctuations they see, the variances they see in the tests are a tenth of a point here, tenth of a point there. When you go to a full half a point drop in 2 weeks, they said that's pretty significant, which means I'm back into normal range, which means it can mean any number of things. But it's a good sign. It's a good indicator. So the clinic closes for a week. I go drive real fast in the Autobahn, drive all over Hell's Half Acre in Europe, and do all that kind of fun stuff that I talked about on Caring Bridge. And then I come back and get another week of treatment. And when they did the last tumor marker test on me before I left, it was at a 1.3. Now, again, I was a 1.2 before, then it became a 1.3. They're not worried about that. I'm not worried about. Again, that's that same variation thing. They expect a tenth of a degree variations here and there. It's still under normal range. They're pretty happy about that. But again, it's not the most accurate test in the world. The one that's accurate is called an APO10/TKTL1 test. Don't ask me what it means. I don't know. I'll try and look it up someday. When I write the book, I'll know what the test means. It's a very hyper-accurate test that tells you exactly what kind of level of cancer you have in your body. It's more accurate, apparently, than a PET CT scan is. The people that are doing this test over in Europe have appealed and are applying to the FDA to get this approved to be done in the States. And they've been doing that for years. And it will probably take another 10, 15 years before the FDA to get around to allowing you to do this test. But in the meantime, they do it over in Germany. When I had the first test done, it wasn't pretty. Everybody knew it wasn't pretty. That's why I was over there. But it was a baseline. They drew the blood on Thursday of last week for the same mega test, like my final exam. That's supposed to come back Thursday or Friday. This is hurdle number one. If that test comes back a lot better than the first test, then we're making progress. We're doing really good. I cleared that first hurdle, which is what we really want to see. Second hurdle is this knot in my neck. Now, they told me when I got there, don't expect to see that knot go away while you're here. Now, see, I kind of expected to see that. Most natural people would. But it doesn't work that way. The reason it doesn't work that way is because everything they do to me causes inflammation in that area. The injections, the heat treatment, whenever you burn your hand, you get blisters, but your hand swells. When you're out in the sun all day long, your joints swell. I mean, that's kind of what the body does in reaction to heat. If you have swelling and you don't want the swelling anymore, you put ice on it, and ice makes it go down. But we wanted heat. Heat is good because heat kills cancer cells. Cancer doesn't like heat, so it's all heat, heat, heat. It makes everything swell up. They said in 3 weeks after you get home, and we're done doing the treatments, 3 weeks later, you're going to see shrinkage. Now, most American males, especially males my age, do not like talking about shrinkage in public. We do not want to see shrinkage in our personal lives. Unless, of course, you have cancer. In this case, for you prayer warriors out there, what we are looking for in 3 weeks is shrinkage. And if that happens, that is a second hurdle that I have to clear. We think it's going to happen. They think they killed the tumor. They think all that's going well. But if they can see that shrink up and shrivel up and go the way of all things in 3 weeks, that's a really good sign. Because If this goes away, and this is pretty much on the surface almost, the one in my chest, which was a lower intensity to begin with, if this goes, that's gone too. And we're happy. Now, the third phase of this comes in around Christmas time, 2-3 months down the road. You've got to give your body a good 2 to 3 months to finish flushing out whatever it's going to flush out and get back to equilibrium, get back to kind of level flight, if you will. Once all that happens, I'm going to get another PET CT scan. And if that PET CT scan doesn't show the same 2 glowing spots that it showed the last time I took it back in June, well then, that's a very big hurdle to cross, and I can do the I told you so dance. Until then, I'm a little reserved and guarded about it, not because I don't believe it's going to happen, but I don't want to get my hopes up until I cross the hurdle. Here's how I feel about this whole thing. I feel great physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever. Here's how I feel. If you're a pilot flying a plane and you're coming in for a landing, right? And you know the airport's out there, but it's a really foggy night and you can't see anything out the window. Now, you're a trained pilot, and you've got gauges all around you. And these gauges tell you that everything is going just fine. You've got a gauge that tells you level flight. You've got a gauge that tells you airspeed. You've got a gauge that tells you how high up you are. You've got another gauge that gives you a glide path to where you need to go. You've got another gauge that tells you what heading you're going, because you can't see anything out the window because all you see is gray or black if you're at night, whatever. So you've got all these gauges to tell you that everything's going all right. But you as the pilot, even though you've got all these gauges telling you that everything's going okay, as a pilot, you'd feel a lot better about things, wouldn't you? If you could see out the window and see where the damn runway is, so you know where you can just make sure you're pointing the plane the right way and that you're not flying into a building or a mountain or something. Wouldn't that make you feel a little more comfortable if you saw where you were going? That's kind of how I feel. All the indications so far are we're moving the right direction. I will feel enormously better in about 3 weeks when this thing goes away. That's when I'll feel like I'm really there. So that's pretty much the overall goal. That's where I'm at. Everything else seems to be going okay. I've already got a follow-up appointment at a sister clinic to the one in Germany that they have in Beverly Hills. I can't do the heat treatment stuff, but there's other stuff that they can do, and they're taking the follow-up stuff very seriously for the next year or so of what I need to do at home to make sure this doesn't flare back up again. All sorts of stuff is going on. And we think everything is going down the right glide path here. I just want to see this little knot in my neck go away. You probably don't even see it looking where you're at. But I know it's there, and it bugs me that it's there. And I have to just be patient and know it's going to go away, provided shrinkage happens. Now, that's the cancer update.